In this video, you're going to see this coffee table transformed with a really cool metallic gold. And the story behind this is a friend of my wife's, and she just did a renovation, and she has this coffee table. She loved the shape, but it didn't quite go with her new interior. And here's the gold metallic film that's going to go on it. Really, really cool stuff. This is 3M Dyno film. And what she said is, she loved the shape of the table, but just wanted to change it so that it fit more in her apartment. So she went through the 3M Dyno book, and she chose this particular material and asked me if I could wrap it. So of course, we'd love to. What's great about this particular table, it doesn't need a lot of prep work. It's in really good condition for the most part. So what I'm doing is drove to her house. Now I'm just in a nice environment. It's not super dusty. This is one of the great things about Dyno, because oftentimes you work in interior. And I'm just cleaning the table, first with isopropyl alcohol just to get the surface super, super clean. Then I have a light grade sanding paper here, 240, just finding for any little nicks that need to be sanded up, or if I need to fill anything in, but in this case I didn't. Once the surface is ready, then I'm going to go back and go around the edges with Primer 94. Very important to get everything hyper covered with Primer 94, any crevices, any lines, any edges. So very important to do 360s and make sure you get everything, because wood is a naturally low surface energy for material, so it's very important to clean it, prep it, and get that Primer 94 on it, because this is a permanent installation, so you really got to stick for the long term. So very important to do this. Notice how I'm just starting at one point and doing a 360 loop, but I put the masking tape on the metal there just so the Primer 94 doesn't get on the metal, so it doesn't affect anything. Here I'm putting masking tape on the edges just to lower the surface energy in case the dyno touches the surface. We'll get to that in a second. Now I'm measuring it, and if you notice, the grid pattern on the back of the dyno is based in 10 centimeter squares, so you can use that as a reference point. So here I'm working on the carpet so the material doesn't get scratched when I roll it out, and I'm just getting enough. I have a bleed of about, I would say, a ½ inch all around the sides, so you don't need too much. You want to be precise, mainly just it makes it easier for the installation, but also saves on material costs, which is always nice. There I made a 2-cut line on the backing paper that's called a zipper, and I flipped the material around, and I'm just making sure it lines up. And what's critical here is make sure you put your form on the panel once it's in position so it doesn't shift when you pull that little piece of backing paper out, that little sliver, and then you lock it in place, and that's a permanent hinge. Once you flip it over, especially on any kind of horizontal installs, you want to use a tack cloth, wipe it clean just to make sure that there's no dirt that gets underneath the film, and then just simply squeegee back and forth. Keep that backing paper on, nice even squeegee strokes side to side. The adhesive does have Comply, which is the air egress feature from 3M, but it does not have Control Tack. And also, because of the surface that you're working on, in this case wood, if you pick the material back up, it's definitely going to pick up some of the coating, maybe pick up some of the wood. So it's a one-shot deal. So be super thorough and precise in your actions when you're wrapping. Try not to just take off the backing paper and go. Now that the material's on this square section here, just run a finger 360, set it up. Then with a very sharp knife, I'm actually cutting on the opposite side of this crevice here. It's a very deep crevice, and there's no way, even if this was a hyper thin cast film, that it would stick in there, but because 3M Dyno gives a multi-layered film, I'm going to cut it on the other side and then feed it in to the bottom. So once I make that cut, then I can pull the masking tape off. Nice and easy. The masking tape was great. And then here on the corners, I'm going to make a relief cut and do a standard overlap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeegee one side down, squeegee the other side down, and then just lock it into place right there. And then when I do the opposite side, it's going to overlap, and they have a little triangle shape. But it's such a small, minor triangle shape in a crevice, there's no need to do any different types of overlaps there. Once I get the material squeegeed in, notice how I'm really squeegeing at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to add some heat here. This is metallicized film, and it tends to be a little stiff. The 3M Dyno film comes in over 20 different finishes and colors, so or 20 different finishes and types, so each one it behaves differently. If it's metallicized, it generally tends to be a little on the stiff side, so that's why I added a little bit of heat just so it really conformed to that inside section. So I wasn't stretching it, just conforming it. Now we're here to the side sections, and the side sections are the same, so you have 4 equal parts. So I measured exactly how much I need, and notice again I'm being very precise, following the lines on the back, just because I want to keep those panels straight. It makes it easier for the install and reduces those material costs. Keep the masking tape on the metal there to lower the surface energy, and now I'm going to cut it up into 3 sections. There's no way I'm going to wrap this in one piece. So what I'm doing now, and you'll see a full detail of this in a second, is I put one side on, just worked out a system for this. Obviously I've never wrapped this table before. So once I get one side figured out, I think it's good for streamlining the install as I set up the 3 panels for the 3 sections all set up. And here, when I did one, as you can see, even just by pulling masking tape off the table, some of it comes onto the masking tape. So imagine once if the dyno touches, it's really going to cause problems. So that's why you always want to set everything up with masking tape. Be very precise with your cutting. So now here is a full sequence of this section. I'm going to do the bottom first. Once I set it up, I've got a hinge in the middle, flip it over, and then lock it into the side. And also what you want to think about this particular pattern is it has lines on it. So I want to make sure that the lines are not only straight, but because it's metallicized, it's directional. So therefore, if I put the panels in opposite directions, they're going to reflect differently. So once I lock it in side to side, I'm going to carefully pick it up, tuck it into the base of that top piece right there, and then squeegee it down, then lock it into the sides with my squeegee. Then I'm going to make a nice, good, straight cut. And this holds my blade nice and easy. Very sharp blade, and just let the side of the table hold the blade so it doesn't jump off. Slow and steady as cut is very, very good right there. Once I get to the top, I pull away, almost like you're doing tint, so it cuts nice and clean. So I cut left and I cut right, so release these side sections. Now the table wraps goes farther, obviously, underneath this section here, but because it's not in the visual, there's no need to take the material there, so I'm going to just cut it right to the edge and angle my blade almost slightly into the section I just wrapped. So just try to cut it flush, because Dyno material is thick. You want to cut it flush to the edge, almost like a beveled cut. And then here I'm cutting a 1/8 of an inch over the groove that I just, over the section that I just wrapped. So it's going to slightly overlap onto the section that I just did. Very light touch, so I only just cut into the material. Now I'm going to do this top section, obviously hyper clean, so I'm going to just wipe it one more time just to be safe, because I've been working on the other sections and dirt does pop out. Lock this section in, make sure it fits left to right. Once it fits, and I did that zipper cut right in the middle, I pulled just that little sliver of backing paper. Get my free hand on there to anchor it in place, line it up, make sure the logo is going in the same direction. One more time with the cloth just to make sure there's no speck of dirt. Squeegee it on, nice and easy, very straightforward. Double check the dirt, pull the backing paper halfway, flip over, lock it in, squeegee. Now what's interesting about this particular top, it's got a little curve right there, hard edge, 90 degrees, so my free hand pulls down while I really seal the corner. Very, very important to do. If you make that corner loose, the material will bridge. Then I squeegee to the corner here, left and right. No need for heat, because I'm going to do a butt joint right at the edge right there. So once I squeegee into the sides, I can finish the bottom, and this bottom is a tuck and cut, and very good clear line to hold my blade right there. So I squeegee left to right, just to get a kind of a funny position when I'm cutting, but that's the nature of wrapping. And then here I'm going to cut it with an angle right to the side, and it's a slight butt joint right there, but I'll come back and finish that nice and clean. For the top, there's a nice good line to follow with my blade, so I just line it up with my hard side of my squeegee, let the blade do the cutting, very light touch, good shot of it here, nice and clean, keep that blade at about a 10-degree angle. So the same thing on the side here, hold it away, cut it flush, and here, cut on the opposite side. So when I did the middle piece, I cut on the side I'm working on now. When I'm doing this section, I'm cutting on the middle and folding it down. So if I'm looking into the table, I see gold. If I'm looking from the opposite side, I see gold as well. And then she's going to come back in and fill that with paint. Really no way to wrap that. That was just raw wood. I'm going to reuse the masking tape here. I used that for the top piece. Now I'm going to use it for the middle piece. Just always nice to recycle the paper. Here, just going a little cowboy, taking the entire liner off just because it's such a tight section, really hard to set up. Because the surface energy of the dyno at the top is low, and I have the masking tape, really helped right there. Now I'm just going to do a super light touch, and I'm overlapping the bottom piece that I had cut earlier about 1/8 of an inch. And that's really important to do just for long-term durability, so those pieces overlap just a little bit. You don't see the overlap, it really disappears. Once I make that cut, super light touch, pull away. Always pull away from the section you work on in case you didn't cut enough. It'll tear away from into the excess film and not to what you just wrapped. Tuck it in super clean, cut back in that same groove, so almost like a butt joint inside there. Remove the excess film, squeegee it down. Very important to go back and squeegee over everything you just did. And then here, I'm going to use a 90-degree cut, come back, and I'll finish that off in a second. And what's very important, especially when you're working in someone's home, is just to keep a super clean workspace. Very important. What's also nice about working in someone's home, though, is it's super clean, it's comfortable. Obviously getting fed coffees, I'm not in a super dusty environment. That's one of the benefits of dyno for sure. Then at the edges, what's interesting about dyno is you have to sand the edges down a little bit, just in case they are sticking up. Because if they stick up, someone can pick up an edge, affects long-term durability. So this is 240 grit, same what I used for prep. And I'm just angling it at about a 45-degree angle on the sides, and here just going up and down. And once you smooth those edges, it really just butts up and fits perfectly like a puzzle piece. really nice. And for this awkward section that's hard to access, I can take the paper off and do this by hand. So very important to do a 360. And obviously when you're sanding, some specks come off, so always make sure you vacuum those up, so that can get a little messy. And what's very important on certain sections, not everywhere, don't do this on the main surface, just the edges, is to make sure that they're sealed and sealed down. When you're working in someone's home, because your daughter just came home from school, she was watching me put stickers on the whole time, so she was super excited, so I gave a little rock and roll for the camera, but also for her. Awesome stuff. And now for the wrap up. The prep time on this one is very straightforward, 30 minutes. Install time wasn't hard, just slow and steady, 1.5 hours. Travel time, 2 hours, 1 hour there, 1 hour back. You always have to factor that into your schedule and your pricing. Total material, 2.2 yards, around 2 meters. And the specific dyno number was AM1701, which is advanced metallic. So what I loved about this is she got a new table. It looks great. Everyone's very happy. She didn't have to go buy a new table, which saved her money. So the install was cheaper than buying a new one. She can match it to her interior because she had 850 choices to choose from. And from an installer's perspective, it's an easy, straightforward install for the most part once you understand how to put on dyno. You're in a nice environment, and because she loved it so much, she put it on Instagram, told our friends, and word of mouth is one of the best ways to make money. Thanks for watching. Justin Payton.